As a young boy, John Brown knew what was right and wrong in his society. One of the things he found wrong was slavery. His beliefs changed as he matured, which led him to be the abolitionist we all know today. Even though religion wasn't a factor to John Brown, he believed we were all equal. As a young abolitionist, he helped in the Underground Railroads, helping free many blacks of the harsh reality of slavery. John Brown soon changed his method to fight slavery into a violent one. He wanted to send a strong message to slave owners and racist whites throughout the states. That led to Harper's Ferry, which he raided. Him and 20 of his men raided the artillery for weapons in order to arm themselves to fight against the racist whites. John Brown also believed that if blacks from the North and South united, they would cause a strong force which would send a message of unity throughout the states.
Brown became convinced that if he started an uprising among slaves by providing weapons and strategy, the revolt would spread across the entire South. Raid at Harper's Ferry became one of the contributing factors that led to the Civil War. Brown and his group of men spent the summer secretly stockpiling weapons, as they believed they could arm slaves in the South who would escape to join their cause. Brown traveled to Chambersburg, Pennsylvania at one point that summer to meet with his old friend, Frederick Douglass. Hearing Brown's plans and believing them suicidal, Douglass refused to participate. What went wrong during the John Brown raid? When they left the arsenal, a train had spotted them. Brown's men fired at the train and tried to stop it. While firing at the train, they shot an innocent free black man. He worked for the railroad. His name was Heyward Shepherd, the first victim of the raid. Almost half of Brown's men were gone. Some had died as they were shot by the townspeople that morning, and some had escaped. A contingent of Marines arrived under the command of Colonel Robert E. Lee. Most of Brown's men were soon killed, but he was taken alive on October 18th in jail. The people who fought against him were the town people, and also the Marines under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Robert E. Lee. John Brown and remaining men were completely surrounded by an army of Marines. Brown and his men were approached by a young lieutenant named J.E.B. Stewart, waving a white flag. Stewart said, "If you surrender, your lives will be spared." However, Brown refused. One Marine tried to stab Brown but missed and hit his buckle. Next, the Marines beat him unconsciously. In conclusion, John Brown was found guilty for his acts at Harper's Ferry. He was hanged December 2, 1859. He died for his cause and was later referred to as abolitionist martyr. Brown's act has inspired many to keep fighting for freedom.
The significance of the raid was to cause inspiration among the slaves, but the whites from the North and South as well. The raid was highly controversial and was interpreted differently, but from my research, I learned that John Brown was a martyr. Brown committed these crimes in order to end. He was extremely passionate about doing so. He said, "I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away but with blood." John Brown was an inspiration to many. He was a white man fighting to eliminate slavery. He was white and could do whatever he pleased, but he chose to protect the rights of blacks. Brown did not judge anyone by the color of their skin, but rather saw everyone as humans and said we should all be treated equally. John Brown was a martyr for the cause of emancipation, the abolition of slavery, and freedom. A martyr is a person who is put to death or endures great suffering on behalf of any belief, principle, or cause. Brown says, "I will die fighting for this cause. There will be no peace in this land until slavery is done for." What caused him to think like that? When he was young, he saw an African-American boy being mistreated, and from that day forward, he swore eternal war with slavery. Brown's refusal of prayer when he was in jail, while in prison, awaiting his death, Brown did not want the priests from the South to pray for him. He said, "My knees will not bend in prayer with them while their hands are stained with the blood of souls." They owned slaves, which caused him to deny their services. What did the raid spark? By doing the raid and dying for his purpose, he inspired people to begin anti-slavery movements. This was also one of the triggers that started the Civil War, made people think differently and not be closed-minded anymore. John Brown was an inspiration to many, was known as a martyr against the American anti-slavery cause, and sparked many anti-slavery movements. Even though John Brown's raid was unsuccessful, he still managed to become a great influence in American history. The raid is known as one of the triggers to the Civil War, the war that ended slavery.
John Brown's place in history was a hero, even though people think he was a murderer. John Brown was born in the deepest religious family, led by a father who was greatly opposed to slavery. John Brown was obsessed with the cause that he raised a black youth as one of his own. As a contribution to the cause, he sacrificed himself and his sons at Harper Ferry's raid. John Brown was a man of action, a man who will not be deterred from his mission of abolishing slavery. He believed that violence was the only way from stopping the evils of slavery. Here are some of John Brown's words. "These ministers who profess to be Christian and hold slaves or advocate slavery, I cannot abide them. My knees will not bend in prayer with them, while their hands are stained with the blood of souls." John Brown helped finance the publication of David Walker's Appeal and Henry Highland's Call to Rebellion speech, even though he wasn't financially successful. Another accomplishment was that he participated in the Underground Railroad, and in 1851 he established the League of Galileans. John Brown became a major figure in 1855 when he followed his sons to Kansas City, where he became the leader of anti-slavery guerrillas and fought a pro-slavery attack against the anti-slavery of Lawrence. In conclusion, here are some words of David Thoreau about John Brown. He did not recognize unjust human laws, but resisted them as he was bid. No man in America has ever stood up so presently and effectively for the dignity of human nature. With every drop of his honest blood, he hated slavery, and in his early manhood, he resolved to lay his life on freedom's altar, whipping art that insufferable action. He never faltered. So godlike was his incapable soul that he dared to face the world alone. Here are his last words before death. "I, John Brown, am quite certain that the crimes of guilty land will never be purged away, but with blood I had, as I now think vainly, flattered myself with that every much bloodshed it might be done."